This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Well, it wasn't the Grey Cup result that Bombers fans wanted. The Montreal Alouettes won the big championship yesterday. It was a heartbreaking loss for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. CBC's Brittany Greenslade is in Hamilton with reaction from the team.
Go Bombers!
It went from high hopes of a dynasty team with 4 consecutive Grey Cup runs, 2 wins, the team looking for one more. And quickly, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were left in despair.
Down by 3. Time running out. End zone! Touchdown!
With just 13 seconds, the Bombers couldn't hold on any longer, losing the lead and the game 28-24.
I don't know if our guys will remember the score. They'll remember that we lost, and they'll also remember their teammates who put everything they had into stepping on the field.
The emotion was written all over Zach Collaros' face as the quarterback spoke about a loss that hurt so bad.
Sad, disappointed. Disappointed is probably the wrong word. Sad, you play to win the game, play to win the last one, then we came up short. Montreal was a few plays better than us. Which is really sad.
Devastation, disappointment, and a loss that was so overwhelming for the players, some couldn't even find the words. Running back Brady Oliveira broke down in tears as he sat with his head between his hands. There was silence in the locker room. For Oliveira, a player that leaves everything out on the field, despite having an incredible game himself, he still felt guilty about possibly not doing enough.
Coaches that put in countless hours for game planning, and it feels like it's all a waste. My season that I had this year, it's a waste. I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. I didn't have any individual goals set. I want to help my team, help my city win a championship, and we didn't get it done. It sucks. It's gonna go with me for a bit into this offseason for sure.
It's a heartbreak the players know all too well after losing by 1 point last year to the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah, it's pain, and it doesn't get easier. We obviously had this last year, and it hurts just as bad now. And it's kind of hard to put into words, that feeling, but to watch another team celebrate, it hurts.
It's a game that will take some time to get over for the fans and the players.
We take pride in our season and things like that. It's just, this is not the end result that we wanted.
A loss that cut deep and wounds that will take time to heal before they come back for another season next year. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Hamilton, Ontario.
For Montreal, it was a thrilling victory. This is the Alouettes' first CFL title in 13 years. Their fans and players couldn't be happier. Kwabena Oduro tells us about the team's triumphant return to Montreal.
Their celebration on full display as the Montreal Alouettes stepped off the plane.
Having that cup on that plane ride home makes all the blood, the sweat, the tears all worth it.
Quarterback Cody Fajardo was named MVP for throwing a 19-yard touchdown pass in the final seconds of the game, helping the team end its 19-year drought with a 28-24 upset win over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Can't be any more prouder of this team. The way that everybody counted us out is what bonded us, and that bonded us from day one of training camp and all the way through the playoffs and in the Grey Cup, and even at halftime when we were down 10 points. Nobody batted an eyelash. We believed all year.
In a season that saw the team with a new starting quarterback, new coach, and new owner, few expected much from the Owls. But head coach Jason Moss saw something special in the team.
You would never be able to tell whether we were on a 3-game losing streak or a 4-game winning streak. We all came to work the same and put the work in, and I think that's why we're here today in front of you as champions.
After a mixed start, the Owls had momentum, winning their last 8 games.
When you give everything you have to an entire season and it culminates into a Grey Cup win, I think you're about exhausted as you could possibly be.
I've been winning all my life to be a champion.
In a passionate post-game interview with RDS, defensive back Marc-Antoine Dequoy criticized the media and the CFL for what he felt was a lack of respect for the Alouettes and a lack of French at the Grey Cup. Today, he admitted his emotions got the best of him.
It's nothing against the English. When the comment I said is like I said, it was mostly about you can keep the English sign. It was mostly that. It just when you're live after a victory, it's hard to actually have the right words.
Now that they are back, fresh off their Grey Cup win, some of the players are looking forward to continuing celebrations with their families. They are also looking forward to celebrating with Montrealers on Wednesday during the parade. Cubino Duro, CBC News, Mirabel.
In other news tonight, the city of Winnipeg may ban the smoking of hookah pipes indoors and on patios. City Council's Community Services Committee voted today to ask for a bylaw to ban hookah lounges. This comes 11 months after the city looked into regulating hookah smoking. Councillor Evan Duncan, the Community Services Chair, moved the motion for a ban. Duncan says it's almost been 2 decades since the city banned tobacco smoking indoors. He also says it's time to close the loophole on indoor smoking, something he called unsafe.
I don't see why we need to continue to allow hookah establishments in Winnipeg when people are smoking potentially tobacco or any other products. It's against provincial legislation and against city bylaw.
A spokesperson for a pair of Winnipeg hookah lounges declined comment. A more robust indoor smoking ban could also affect cigar lounges. They're a common sight on Winnipeg streets, bus shacks missing panes of glass. The city has struggled to keep up with repairs. They have a plan to test shatterproof glass in an effort to curb vandalism. But as CBC's Cameron McLean reports, it comes at a cost.
Kim Chastelaine takes the bus every day. Like many of the bus shelters along this stretch of Main Street, every pane of glass is missing.
I don't feel safe, especially at nighttime. My kids don't take the bus. I do. I don't feel safe at all, especially at nighttime.
The number of bus shelters with broken glass has grown. In 2021, there were 267 compared to 361 the following year. As of November 3rd, there were 294, with 115 of those still missing glass. Many of those are concentrated along Main Street. On Sunday, CBC News counted 23 shelters with broken glass between St. Mary Avenue and Burren Street. Chastelaine says the busted shacks hurt the neighborhood.
Nobody wants to come down this way, especially if it's broken.
Unlike last year, the city is no longer dealing with a shortage of glass, but high rates of vandalism, graffiti, and motor vehicle incidents have added to the backlog. Now the city is launching a pilot project to test impact-resistant glass in bus shelters.
It's an incredible, durable material, but it's 2 to 3 times the cost. So we're going to have to be really strategic on where these, if we proceed with that.
The city won't say when the pilot project will start or how many shelters will get the shatterproof glass. They also won't say where it will be installed in order to prevent anyone deliberately trying to break it. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
This week is Substance Use and Addictions Awareness Week. An event was held at the Legislative Building to mark the week. Laura Lapointe used to be a daily meth user. Now she's a mental health rehab worker and peer support worker with Shared Health. She shared her story today.
For people like me who have experienced addictions and often have negative and shame-based narratives and shifts with our inner dialogue and getting people to be thinking in other ways and challenging thoughts when they begin to be critical is helpful.
The theme this year is inspiration, innovation, and inclusion. The price tag of the NDP government's swearing-in ceremony is in, and it's steep. The new provincial government opted to hold the event at The Leaf. It featured music and dancing and closed the biomes to the public. New figures show it cost just over $19,000. That's roughly triple the amount spent when the Progressive Conservatives were sworn in 2016. Documents obtained by the Canadian Press show Premier Wab Kinew wanted to hold the event outdoors, but the Leaf was considered due to concerns the weather might not cooperate. A Manitoba RCMP officer who put his knee on a man's neck as the man cried, "I can't breathe," during a 2019 arrest is no longer facing criminal prosecution. CBC's Caitlin Garlick has more and a warning. Some of the video in this story may be disturbing.
Help me! I can't breathe!
For more than 3 minutes, this police officer held his knee on a man's neck. It happened during an arrest at Winnipeg's airport in 2019 and was caught on cell phone video. When that video surfaced, Constable Eric Garian was charged with assault. But CBC News has learned that the charge was stayed earlier this month.
Prosecutors say there were two key reasons why they stayed the officer's charge. First, because they say there were questions about the man's credibility. And second, because more video footage came to light that showed the man acting aggressive before he was arrested.
This surveillance video was submitted as evidence in Nathan Lesuc's trial for assaulting another man at the airport and 2 officers. He's seen kicking and punching the other man outside the airport. Later, when officers arrive, he attacks them as well. Court heard the Alberta man has PTSD and had been drinking to help with anxiety about flying. A judge found Lesuc was guilty of the assaults, but also said that his charter rights had been violated during the arrest because of how long the officer's knee stayed on his neck. The former head of Ontario's police watchdog says, while the full video from the airport does show Lesuc being aggressive and assaulting officers, that doesn't give police the right to use the force they did once Lesuc was on the ground with his hands cuffed.
And if I were a member of the public in Manitoba, I would be concerned about whether or not there's a double standard with respect to police prosecutions.
Ian Scott says he doesn't buy the Crown's reasons for staying the assault charge.
This is a case that could be decided almost exclusively on the video, which is fairly incontrovertible evidence.
Please, nothing. You open your mouth one too many times.
RCMP say Constable Garian is back on duty, and the officer's lawyer says his client is pleased with the outcome. Meanwhile, Lesuc says he was terribly disappointed to learn the officer who put a knee on his neck won't face trial. Former police watchdog Scott says there's a large public interest in this kind of case going before a judge, and he thinks the decision to stay the charge should be reviewed. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
In Brandon, police say a man has been arrested after a business and apartment building were destroyed by fire. Police say they were called around 3:30 this morning to a business on 12th Street in the city's downtown. An employee said the fire alarms were going off and they could smell smoke. Police helped the man and 10 people who lived in the apartments get out of the building. A 33-year-old man who police say broke in and started the fire now faces several charges, including disregard for human life and arson. The building is a total loss. Winnipeg City Councillors are looking at a new strategy to protect the city's tree canopy. It calls for dozens of new staff and millions of dollars to increase planting and pruning, and aims to increase Winnipeg's tree canopy to cover a quarter of the city by 2065. The city needs 42 new full-time staff to plant 17,000 new trees every year to reach that target. But Trees Winnipeg said the current target of planting 1 tree for every tree removed won't make up for the trees the city has already lost.
It does mean that if we have particularly difficult years ahead, drought years or an uptick in disease, that we probably won't even reach the 1-to-1 target if more trees are lost than what we think. So we think having that as a maximum target is unfortunate. We would like to see it increased.
The committee voted on the strategy earlier today, and it was passed. A blue, pink, and white striped flag flies at Memorial Park today in honor of the Transgender Day of Remembrance. The flag was raised by Manitoba's first openly trans MLA, Logan Oxenham. It's the first time in 8 years that Manitoba has marked the day. The NDP government says it's a day of reflection as transphobia is on the rise.
While our community and the strides made towards our liberation are increasingly under threat, this flag stands as a symbol of both our community's resilience and that of the solidarity this new government has with all trans people.
Transgender Day of Remembrance started in 1999 after a trans woman in Boston was stabbed to death in a hate crime. CBC weather specialist Ethan Williams joins us now. Hi, Ethan.
Thanks very much, Marjorie. And a bit of an unsettled day toward the end of the day here as we see some showers moving through Winnipeg and the Red River Valley. But it's really in northern Manitoba where we're seeing quite a bit of instability. A low pressure system moving through the Northwest Territories, bringing through some very strong wind gusts. This was a winter storm watch a little earlier in the day for places like Churchill and Port Nelson and York Factory. Now it's over to a wind warning. We're not expecting as much in terms of snow, but all along the Hudson Bay coast here in northeastern Manitoba could see winds in excess of 90 kilometers an hour as we head into tomorrow. You can see that low pressure system on our outlook here, and through the evening that system likely going to be continuing to bring through some rain showers to portions of southern Manitoba and a little bit of snow as well. The other thing is we have the cold front attached from this, which is going to make things pretty breezy as we head through overnight, even in the southern half of the province. And as we get into tomorrow, that means that temperatures are going to drop a little bit in comparison to today, but things should be clearing out through much of the south. Still a little bit of lingering snow, but much of it should be over by tomorrow afternoon. You can see that low is really stagnant. It continues to hang around into Wednesday, but for us, we should be mainly free and clear of that. A little bit of snow moving through central portions and through the inner lake as we head through early Wednesday morning. But then things really substantially clearing as we head into Thursday, Friday, as this area of high pressure begins to move in from Saskatchewan. Again, not too much in the way of snowfall through the north, maybe 2 to 4 centimeters in Thompson and Churchill, and toward the northwestern Ontario, I think we may see pockets of a little bit of heavier snow, upwards of 5 centimeters. But again, really the story here is going to be the wind, upwards of close to 100 kilometer an hour gusts in the far north as we head through tomorrow, and even into Thursday as well at times. Things will be picking up a bit for us in Winnipeg and for eastern sections of the province as we head through both Thursday and Friday. But there will be a bit of a change coming in terms of our temperatures, not just tomorrow, but later in the week as well. You can see the jet stream beginning to show a trough here, and this means that some cooler conditions likely going to be heading our way as we get a little bit later into the week. And you'll see that cool down here. We actually have not too bad of a day tomorrow, hovering around the freezing mark with some breezy conditions in the morning. Still a little bit gusty at times on Wednesday, a little bit of increasing cloudiness as well, but you can see those overnight lows beginning to drop into those minus double digits, a high of just -7 on Thursday, Marjorie. So going to feel cold after we've been spoiled with some nice warm weather, especially this past weekend.
Thank you very much, Ethan. Still ahead, Israeli tanks have surrounded a hospital, a sign that fighting has moved to the doorstep of another hospital in the Gaza Strip. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. The latest developments from the war between Israel and Hamas have seen fighting move to the doorstep of another hospital in northern Gaza. But a group of at-risk babies from another hospital there are now safely in Egypt. CBC's Sasha Petrusik is tracking today's developments.
28 premature babies were lifted out of Gaza today, out of danger, into Egypt, suffering from infections after a week-long siege of Al-Shifa Hospital by Israeli forces.
They all are, again, seriously ill. They have a long road to go.
Among the babies, Lobna Al-Saik's daughter. Enough, she says. Stop targeting innocent children. It was one bright spot in a conflict that's had too few of them. Again today, Hamas rockets were intercepted over Tel Aviv. Increased fighting with the militant group Hezbollah along the Lebanese border in the north. And Israeli strikes continued in Gaza. Here, 14 Palestinians reportedly killed in the south. Here, hospital staff say at least 12 died when Israeli tanks moved in and fired at the Indonesian hospital. Israel says it was responding to shooting from inside. Hospital staff deny any. In all, Palestinian health officials say more than 13,000 have died in Gaza.
We are witnessing a killing of civilians that is unparalleled and unprecedented in any conflict since I am Secretary General.
Death, but also suffering on both sides. The families of more than 200 kidnapped Israelis holding on to hope that negotiations to release at least some of them are going well.
I think we should be hopeful, and I think this is the only way that we can get up in the morning and start our day. Our lives just stopped October 7th.
A similar feeling in Gaza, where in the south today, those fleeing the bombs, already facing shortages of food, medical help, and housing, now face wind and rain. A stormy season without end. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
A group of Canadian MPs visited a kibbutz north of Tel Aviv today to express their solidarity with Israelis.
It was really moving. It really made it very personal. It made me understand what it was like to live in a safe room, wondering if you were going to be alive for the very next minute or if your loved ones were going to be killed from moment to moment for over 24 hours. It explains a lot about the Israeli perception, why the entire political class in Israel, from the left to the right, all believes they need to get rid of Hamas.
The 2 Liberal and 3 Conservative MPs are part of a larger Canadian delegation to Israel. Today, they listened to accounts from survivors of the October 7th attack by Hamas and visited a cemetery where some of the victims are buried. Closer to home, about 20 protesters are blocking the CN rail line in downtown Winnipeg. The protesters are standing on the tracks near Main Street and York Avenue at the Forks. They are chanting and carrying Palestinian flags. Their signs say ceasefire now and Palestine will never die. Dasha Plett is one of the protesters.
So we're answering the call of Palestinian organizations to disrupt politicians, businesses, organizations, and infrastructure that is collaborating with, funding, and investigating and benefiting from Israeli occupation and apartheid and genocide.
Plett says they are targeting CN Rail because it has business ties with one of Israel's largest shipping companies. CN says it is monitoring the situation. Turning now to the latest in Russia's war with Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was in Kyiv today for an unannounced visit. It came amid Ukrainian concern that the ongoing conflict is being overshadowed by the Israel-Hamas war. CBC's Richard Madden reports.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin arrived in Kyiv after a long 9-hour train ride from Poland to deliver what he called America's unwavering support for Ukraine in its war against Russia. His high-profile, unannounced visit comes as Ukrainian officials are reportedly concerned their conflict is being overshadowed by Israel's war against Hamas, stretching badly needed resources to help in their fight. Austin delivered a message of reassurance, promising $100 million worth of new weapons and security assistance. Later, he delivered a message to Americans back home why it's critical for the U.S. to stay in the fight.
What happens here matters, not just to Ukraine, but to the entire world. This is about the rules-based international order. This is about, not living in a world where a dictator can wake up one day and decide to annex the property of his peaceful neighbor.
Most Western allies, including Canada, have supplied weapons, training, and support to Ukraine, but nearly 2 years into the war, cracks are starting to show. Some European countries like Poland have scaled back their support, citing their own needs to defend themselves. Ukrainian officials are concerned about war fatigue setting in from its traditional allies and are relying on U.S. leadership.
It's very important for us that the United States, together with us, and we count on your support. Thanks to Congress, bipartisan support, and we are very thankful to American people. They're with us all these difficult days.
But domestic headwinds in the U.S. is complicating support. Congress rejected new cash for Ukraine in its latest spending bill, and a growing number of Republicans say they won't approve any more new aid to Ukraine unless there's more funding to secure America's southern border. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
Canadians and people around the world have been dealing with extreme weather in recent years. But scientists say if you think it's bad now, just wait. It's going to get much worse unless we take action now. Brett Ruskin has more.
For years, we've been hearing about that 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold, that if global temperatures increase 1.5 degrees above where they were in pre-industrial levels in the 1800s, it's going to mean irreversible trends and changes for the global climate. Even worse if we hit 2 degrees above those levels. Well, this new report says that we are on track if nothing changes in terms of the government plans as they stand now to reduce carbon emissions globally. We are on track to hit 2.9 degrees above those pre-industrial levels by the year 2030. That is going to mean significant changes, billions of more people dealing with extreme heat events, rising water levels, ocean levels. 99% is the estimate for the impact of the deaths of ocean coral life, the extinction of species around the world as well, and just more extreme weather events for people all around the globe. Now, this report does say that there is a chance that we could stay within that 1.5 degree threshold. If everything in this report is enacted, if all of the recommendations are followed, that means a complete overhaul in the way that we power the world and get off of fossil fuels immediately, that there is a 14% chance in the most optimistic scenario that we could stay within that 1.5 degree threshold. However, we are already pushing up against that threshold with 86 days so far this year at least having exceeded that 1.5 degree threshold above those pre-industrial levels day by day. So the authors of this report introduced the theme of broken records, that they've seen record-breaking temperatures month after month this past year, but also they say they feel like broken records, that they are saying and offering the same warnings that they have made previously in the past, making these warnings over and over again, once again in this report. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
The housing crisis is top of mind for many Canadians, and that fact is not lost on the federal government. As Karina Roman reports, the problem is expected to be a key focus in tomorrow's fiscal update.
Amid Canada's worsening housing and affordability crisis and growing criticism it's not doing enough to solve it, CBC News has learned Ottawa will commit billions to bringing relief in Tuesday's fall fiscal economic statement.
We are here for Canadians.
A senior government source not authorized to speak publicly says among the big promises tomorrow, expect $15 billion in loans to build new rental housing units, a $1 billion fund to build affordable housing, and new tax rules meant to curb short-term rentals in favor of long-term tenants.
My sense is if there's tens of thousands of units that we can turn into not a competitor for a hotel or for a few nights, but a home for a family and a community, it's incumbent upon us to do everything we can to use the properties that are available for homes.
Even before the announcement, the opposition argues the Prime Minister can't deliver.
He will come out here and he will make billions of dollars of housing promises, just like he did 8 years ago. And what will that do? It'll build bureaucracy.
For its part, the NDP wants more money for social housing and tougher competition laws for the grocery sector.
So are these initiatives that we're going to see in the fall economic statement, or are Canadians going to be left waiting again?
Critics, worried about the deficit, say now is not the time for new spending, but to protect existing social programs and services.
I just think, again, the more imprudent you are, the more difficult you put yourself in a situation where you're going to have to cut programs or raise taxes at one point. It's just pure math.
But with high interest rates, slow growth, and constant pressure to spend more from the NDP, whose support the Liberals rely on, the chances of a government plan to balance the books are slim. Karina Roman, CBC News, Ottawa.
Enrollment in many journalism schools is dropping, so administrators are looking for new ways to attract and keep students. Here's more from Deanna Sumanak-Johnson.
So I was between Humber and Ryerson.
Fernando Bossois came all the way from Brazil to study journalism in Canada.
Journalism is a pillar of democracy, right?
Then found out his program at Humber College Lakeshore is pausing admissions after this year due to low enrollment. Last year, his class had 7 students. Now it's down to 4.
It doesn't make for a good student experience, right? Because a good part of journalism school is to have the debate and the different opinions.
In the last year, low enrollment forced 6 journalism programs at Canadian post-secondary institutions to either close doors or pause admissions. University of Regina pressed pause.
It has a long and rather we think, distinguished history. So we wanted to give it a chance to restructure itself, reform itself, in the hopes of attracting new students.
The reasons range from changes within the industry, including major layoffs, to younger generations' lower interest in traditionally delivered news.
You hear from other students as how we're not taking journalism, that they say, like, why are you taking this? Like, there are not really jobs available.
But it's not all bad news. The top journalism schools in the country, like Toronto Metropolitan University, Carleton or Concordia, are noting robust or even growing enrollment. What these schools say they've done is updated lessons to include more contemporary approaches to storytelling, including journalism and social media, podcasting, and data journalism. Programs also have to take a hint from what young people see as troublesome practices in mainstream journalism, says this professor.
For example, coverage of issues related to race, sexuality. So I think in our education and training, we need to reflect this paradigm shift.
I still see news from back home.
As for Fernando Bossois, he will complete his program and wants to be part of a generation that breathes fresh air into an industry at a crossroads. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Still ahead, a used car scam could take car shoppers for a ride. Coming up, we'll tell you what to look out for. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
When it comes to your news, you want up-to-the-minute access. Anytime, anywhere. Get the facts straight from the source. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca for news you can trust.
Well, never mind, let the buyer beware. Now it's the seller's turn to be wary, especially anyone looking to sell their vehicle privately. While the market for used cars has heated up in recent years, it's also been a windfall for scammers. CBC's Giacomo Pinico reports.
When Ellen Thompson went to sell her son's Honda recently, she posted an ad on AutoTrader. The response was huge.
And the first day I was inundated with interested people, and I thought, oh, this is crazy. I couldn't even keep up to the interest.
Anticipating that buyers would want information about any collisions or major repairs, Thompson had already purchased an official vehicle history report from the company Carfax. But many of the people who replied to her ad asked her to do something else.
They would say, oh, that's not detailed enough. Carfax isn't the one I depend on. Can you please go to this website and purchase the one that I trust?
Thompson says that of the 100 potential buyers who contacted her, about 90 made the same suspicious request.
And I thought, oh, this is really strange. Can this be a coincidence? Looked at the third one. Looked at the fourth one. They're all the same. They're all asking you to go to a particular website, sometimes different websites, and asking you to purchase, give your credit card information to purchase another report for your car. And that's when I realized, oh, this has got to be a scam.
She was right to be suspicious. While the website some buyers asked her to use might seem legitimate, they're likely anything but, says the RCMP's Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre.
Fraudsters have the ability to use technology to their advantage. They can create legitimate looking websites. So it's so important to do your research before providing personal information, because if, in this case, if you're providing your credit card information and some personal information, unfortunately, it gives them the ability to, or puts you at risk for identity fraud.
Horncastle recommends sticking with a reputable and well-established company to order a vehicle history report. He estimates that every year, hundreds of Canadians fall prey to this scam. Fortunately, Thompson trusted her instinct and never did enter personal or credit card information on the websites.
I feel like I have to get the message out to other people not to fall for this, because they're very pushy and they get very demanding.
Even if you aren't the victim of an actual scam, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre says it still wants to hear from you if someone tries to scam you. Giacomo Pinico, CBC News, Ottawa.
There are plenty of people who use shortened versions of their birth names. For one Canadian couple, that ended up costing them a $10,000 trip to Ireland. Now they're warning others as the airlines ramp up for a busy holiday season. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
Hotel each night, breakfast.
Doug and Nancy Lee had their hearts set on a trip to Ireland with friends last August.
We were looking forward to something that we had never seen before.
But when they checked in, a Porter agent said there was a problem with Doug Lee's ticket. The ticket, booked by a friend, said Doug, but his passport said Douglas. Under federal law, names have to match.
They just said, it's wrong. It's not the proper use of your name, and so you can't go.
Turns out the group's tickets were booked on what's called a code share flight, an agreement between airlines to sell seats on each other's flights. So Lee paid Air Transat for the ticket, but his seat was on a Porter plane. Air Transat corrected Doug's name, but Porter couldn't see that fix. An air passenger rights advocate questions how Air Transat and Porter claimed they had a working code share.
Just claiming that our systems are not talking to each other is not an excuse.
He says airlines have a duty to fix minor ticket errors.
Any kind of correction that is needed to ensure that you are able to travel as contracted is something the airline has to reasonably cooperate with.
A spokesperson for Porter told Go Public it was up to Air Transat to correct the ticket. He wasn't clear why Porter couldn't see the fix in its system. Air Transat said it's working on updating its procedures so names can be corrected on code share flights.
This is lovely.
Yeah.
So nice.
After Go Public got involved, Air Transat said it will reimburse the couple for their flights. But they're still out about $8,000 for the Ireland tour. They want Air Transat to pay the full cost, saying the airline botched their dream trip.
Look at that. It's beautiful.
Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Weather Update is brought to you by the art and beauty of the National Ballet of Ukraine. January 29th at the Burton Cummings Theatre. Tickets at nationalballetukraine.com.
It's time once again to take a look at the forecast. CBC weather specialist Ethan Williams joins us once again. Hey, Ethan.
Well, if you're in northwestern Ontario, there is still the chance that we could be seeing a little bit of some mixed precipitation this evening in places like Kenora and Fort Francis and even Red Lake, Dryden. Temperature is going to kind of be hovering right around freezing, but that should be clearing as we head into tomorrow. For Winnipeg and southeastern Manitoba, again, we're looking at primarily temperatures tonight kind of in the -5 range, starting off with a chance of some showers in Winnipeg in the southeast, but then that begins to drop off as we head through overnight tonight. Keep in mind, though, winds going to be picking up, making that feel -10 to -15 in a lot of places. And it's really Westman and through the parklands where our temperatures will be the coolest tonight, probably sitting in between -5 and -10. And again, as you see in Brandon there, a wind chill around -17. That'll likely be the case in a lot of locations there. And for the north, of course, we have a bit of this messy system moving through for you folks tonight. Again, temperatures around -10 in a lot of places. But again, just emphasizing around Gillam and Churchill, that's where we're really seeing those winds beginning to pick up. And a little bit of snowfall as well, 2 to 4 centimeters. But I think this is probably around the Churchill area where travel conditions will likely be the worst. Even as we continue into tomorrow, those gusts close to 100 kilometers an hour in that far northeast part of the province. Otherwise, clearing skies out to the west. We're looking for highs kind of between -5 and -10 for the most part. For southwestern Manitoba, highs around freezing or so. And again, we will get some clearing skies as that cold front passes us by and clears things out. Some sunshine as well for Winnipeg and much of southeastern Manitoba and the Red River Valley as we see our highs hovering around freezing or so. Some afternoon clearing in portions of east central Manitoba. For northwestern Ontario, again, a little bit on the chillier side if you're in Kenora, Red Lake, Dryden around -5. And the clearing for you likely won't come until we get about to the afternoon. Maybe some morning flurries for you too. For Winnipeg, we're looking for a temperature tonight of around 2 degrees at midnight. Again, gusty at times. Those winds could be upwards of 60 kilometers an hour. And then heading into the 8 a.m. hour tomorrow, things going to start to clear out, continuing to clear out, I should say. A mostly sunny morning, still a little bit breezy at times, probably feeling a little bit closer to -10. And then as we head to the noon hour, full sunshine at that point, -1, still a bit breezy from time to time, should be diminishing as we head through the afternoon. And not too bad of a day in store. Temperatures quite seasonal for this time of year. We'll have your full Winnipeg 7-day forecast coming up in a little bit.
Thank you very much, Ethan. They're a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. A resident from Skonan, Manitoba receives the doll of her dreams, an Indigenous Barbie called Wilma Mankiller. That story is coming up. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. How often did you see dolls that looked like you or even the same culture as you? Well, a doll collector received the ultimate Barbie to add to their extensive collection. Willissa Catchaway is a local Skowhenan resident who just added the Wilma Mankiller Barbie to her shelf of dolls. Wilma Mankiller was an American Indigenous activist and social worker. Marcy talked to Willissa this morning.
Can you pull out the one that you just got?
Okay, I got the Wilma Mankiller doll here from the Inspiring Woman series from Mattel, Barbie. So
Tell me about her.
my joy in getting this doll because we haven't had a Native American doll from Barbie since I believe 2006. So I was really excited about this. And how this happened was I posted it on Facebook to let people know that this doll was coming out, was being released. So a couple of days later, the designer himself who designed this doll at Mattel, Carlisle Noera, messaged me and said, I'm sending you a doll. So he sent me a doll. A week later, I got it and he signed it. I have the signature right on the doll, on the box. Amazing.
That is amazing. So did the designer, sorry I was interjecting there, I'm excited. Did the designer, how did they know? Did they see your Facebook post that you were a collector and this particular doll meant a lot to you?
Yes, saw my post on Facebook. I have a couple of the designers on my Facebook, luckily, so I get to see what they're doing. So he saw my post about my excitement on getting this doll because I have all the Native American and dolls that Mattel has ever made except for one. So I've been collecting since 1993. So I have them going way back since the first one.
I got into your collection really quickly, but we better talk about the Barbie at hand rather. So Wilma Mankiller who was Wilma Mankiller?
She was the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. She was the first woman who won actually in any nation in any tribe in the U.S. apparently. So
beyond the collection, why was it important to you to have this doll?
Well, because I'm Indigenous myself, of course, and Indigenous dolls, I want to have everyone by Mattel as a collector, which is very important for me.
Did you always love Barbies? And obviously, we've had lots of conversations with many Barbie collectors, and seeing a doll that represents and looks like you, is obviously super meaningful and important. Did you always love Barbies and kind of wait for a Barbie to come out that would be sort of part of, relate to your identity?
Yeah, well, as a child, I was always playing Barbies with my cousins, so.
Me too.
I was preferred to play with their toys rather than the toys that I was given at Christmas. So yeah, I've always been interested in makeup, fashion, and all that. So as I got older, I started collecting.
Willissa, thank you very much for being with us and telling us this story about how they connected and the designer signed the doll for you. Signed the box. Amazing. Appreciate hearing.
It's a dream come true as a collector. Wow.
I bet it is. Take care. Thanks for being with us on CBC today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Still ahead, Ethan Williams is back with your 7-day forecast. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
comes to your news, you want up-to-the-minute access. Anytime, anywhere. Get the facts straight from the source. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca for news you can trust.
Well, we'll be a little bit gusty to start the day tomorrow in Winnipeg, a daytime high of around the freezing mark, but things will stay mostly sunny for us through the day. And on Wednesday, a little bit of increasing cloudiness as our temperatures begin to drop overnight and drop during the daytime as we head through Thursday. And there are more minus temperatures after that as we head into the weekend with some chilly overnight lows. But overall, a mostly sunny pattern as we head through this next week, Marjorie.
Thank you very much, Ethan. Well, visitors to central Mexico haven't just been admiring the scenery these last few days. They've been taking in a colorful display in the skies as part of a 4-day hot air balloon festival. Here's your data. More than 200 hot air balloons have filled the air, with participants coming from 24 countries to take part. While many of the balloons are traditional, a few have been different, like this SpongeBob entry. The festival ends today. Hot air ballooning has a long history in Mexico. The first one took flight in the region almost 200 years ago. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you at 11.